Okay, today we're going to look at making our scatter plots and the lines of best fit using the TI83Plus. On page 87 in your textbook, it does kind of describe how to do this using the technology to do that. So what's going to happen is some of the steps are going to be a little bit different than in there, but a good chunk of them are the same. So what I do is I hit the stat button on the calculator. The stat button is right in the middle, and it says stat. So I want to hit that button, and then it brings up this menu. And when I want to put information in, I want to edit the tables. And what it does is it brings up this group of them, and there's actually 6 of these lists we can use, so we can do multiple at the same time. So then I bring it down, and I look at the table values I have. So here I have the years and income, and I want to put those in. So I type in a 1970. And then I hit enter. Notice it put it in that very first list, list 1, right there in that very first spot. And now I just keep typing in all of those year numbers until I get them all in. And the nice thing is, if you make a mistake, you can arrow back up onto it. Just use the arrow keys, and you can arrow back up onto it whatever things you made a mistake on. Now the other thing is, say there was a bunch of numbers already in a column. So there was already this information in this column, but I want to put in my numbers. I can just type right over the top of a number and fill it in. The other thing I can do is I can arrow up until I'm actually on the L2 and then hit the clear button and hit enter, and it'll clear out everything in that entire column, which is really nice. Okay, so then I got to put in all of those other numbers, the income values. So on page 87, I just using the numbers at the top of the page, and I have all those numbers into the list. Now, when I look at that, now I'm going to quit, so second and quit out of it. I'm going to go to the window, and when I look at this table, I'm looking at those values that I have listed up there. They start at 1970, so I want my X-min to be 1970. And I'm supposed to go to 1998 according to that, but they want me to predict the median income for 2010. So I need to make sure my table goes far enough over, so I'm going to say 2020 on that. Now when I look at that, that's quite a bit of a span of value, so I don't want my X scale to be 1. The X scale talks about when is it going to put a dot on the X-axis for us. So I think every 10 might be enough for that. Even that's going to be quite a few of them. Now my X-min, well, notice the income starts at 9,870. So I'm going to go with 9,800 as an X-min, or Y-min. Y-max, I got at 46.7. So I'm going to raise that up to say 60,000. And I'm going to do that by thousands going up. Okay, so then I hit my Y equals button. I've got something there, so I'm going to hit clear because I don't want any graphs on there. I want that clear graph. Now I'm going to arrow up onto plot 1, and I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to do a second Y equals, and it brings me into that stat plot. And notice number 1 is selected, so I'm going to hit number 1. And I have a bunch of choices. I have it turned on. So the first choice is a scatter plot, and then we have a line graph, and then we have a bar graph, and we have quite a few different options. Whatever you hit enter on is the kind that's going to be made. And then it asks, where am I getting my X values from? And that's list 1. Where am I getting my Y values from? That's list 2. And then I can decide which mark I want. I'm going to leave it with that big mark there. And then I just hit the graph button, and it graphs out these points for me. So notice right down in the bottom corner, there is a box down here in the bottom. There's a box right down here in the bottom corner. That's that 1970, just under 9,000, or under the 10,000 mark. So right at that spot there, that value is listed in there. Okay, so that's the scatter plot. It looks pretty linear. So how do I figure out what the model is? Well, what I do is I go back to stat, and I go over to calc, because calculating is where we're going to calculate all the different types of things. We have a bunch of different items in there, but the one that we want is the one that's going to get us a line, and if you notice, number 4 says LinReg. So I hit number 4. Now, it's automatically defaulted, say, to do list 1 and then list 2 as our list. If you didn't put your numbers in list 1 and list 2, you can name them now. And the way to do that is you hit the second button, and then notice above the 1, 2, 3s, those, there's an L1 and L2, L3. So you can say where you got your X value and where you got your Y value from. Since my numbers are in the L1 and L2, I can just hit enter, and it gives me this information. Oh, it does give us that. I apologize. I was thinking about the TI83Plus does not give us that information. But here we have it all listed out. And now it tells me that the A is 1305.44, and the B is a negative 2,562,901. So there's my model. I would say Y equals, let me write that in there. I would say income equals 1305.44. I'm going to put a Y for years, minus 2562901. So that would be the equation. Ooh, that's a little bright. That darkens it up. So that would be the equation I would use. Now I want to see if that matches up pretty well with the information that we were given. Now, what I do to check that out is I look at these values here. This R value at the bottom of this, that is what's called the correlation coefficient. The closer that number is to a positive one or a negative one, the better the correlation is. Remember, as in yesterday's video when we talked about we have a positive correlation and negative correlation. Negative was just one that was going, as the X value was increasing, it was going down. Well, that would just say the R value would have to be negative 1. So the closer that it is to 1 or negative 1, the better we have. We have a 0.9967. That's a very high correlation. So how do I graph that with my scatter plot? Well, what I do is I hit Y equals. So that way I'm going into that menu to graph something. And then down here, there's a VARS button. I hit that VARS button. And notice the number 5 there says I need to deal with statistics. And that's where we're at. All our information there is sitting in statistics. So I hit the statistics. And then there's, notice at the top, there's all these different menus across the top. I went to EQ because that refers to different parts of the equation. So the very first one says, okay, what is the regression equation? And then I got the A, B, C's and all those. I went the whole equation. And I hit enter. Now notice it put that entire equation right into that Y equals for me. So it's already going to graph it. So now I can go ahead and hit graph, and it shows me my scatter plot, because I already had that turned on, and it shows me this line that went through it. So now I have a great example model for my data. Now, we can use this data to figure out what our question is. We're supposed to predict the median income from 2010. So what I do is I hit the trace button, and I put in 2010. Oops. Go back to graph, hit trace. I forgot to check something. Notice what's in the upper left-hand corner up here. That tells you what information you're looking at. This is I'm currently on the stat plot, so it's on the scatter graph, but I want it to be on the line, so I arrowed down. Now I'm on the equation of the line. Notice I got a blinking pulse there, and I can put in 2010. And it said I should get $61,033.08. So $61,033 would be the predicted median income in 2010. So that's how we can use the calculator to do the stat plots.